So just basically introduction, I am a PhD in computer science. I work as senior data scientist at University Paris Dauphine, and also I'm external professor here at the SKEMA in several courses regarding computer science and machine learning. So this is the outline of the topic. I want to introduce an overview of how ChatGPT was built and how it works, and the main concerns about the future or the impact on ChatGPT in society. Also, how is the prediction for the future of new improvements in this technology, and the main issues, ethical dilemmas, and needs for regulation of this technology. So basically, what is ChatGPT? These are just headlines from news that have appeared in the past weeks and months regarding this, like an AI has won an art contest, or research journals are banning hundreds of authors because they have used an AI to write entire articles, research articles. Or an AI has passed with a very, very good grade advanced university exams in medicine or law in the US mainly. So the most responsible for this phenomenon is no other than ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is none other than a software developer from an OpenAI, which is a startup was founded by Elon Musk in 2015. But now it's basically owned by Microsoft. Microsoft invested $10 billion in OpenAI. Currently, it has 49% of the company, and that is why ChatGPT is already integrated in the Edge search engine, and in the browser, and in the Bing search engine from Microsoft. And in the future month, it's going to be integrated also in the suite of Microsoft Office. So basically, ChatGPT has been the most disruptive technology in our decade. And in terms of the specific technology, it's been the one that has increased exponentially the most in human history. Just in 5 days, it reached 1 million users, and in only 1 month, it's reached 100 million active users per day. There's no other technology in our history that has had these statistics. So basically, ChatGPT is presented as a free website that works as a chat box, which you can interact with. So most people, for most people, it's like a technological oracle to ask any kind of question and that you want to know the answer. Also, ChatGPT has a premium version, which is known as ChatGPT Plus, which improves the user experience, with faster response time, better accuracy in the answer, because you use a more improved version of the model. So people are using ChatGPT for any kind of problems of questions, from the daily questions like what is the best way to tie my shoes? How do I break with my girlfriend gently? How do I cook with these following ingredients in my fridge? Or more challenging technical and specific questions like how do I solve these mathematical problems? Can you write me the code to solve this task? Or can you write me an essay about these topics? Can you write me a song, for instance? Or can you write me a legal text to arrange an apartment? So ChatGPT is able to respond successfully to all of these questions in a way that is very, very difficult to differentiate by an human. So, and also the most impressive capability that has is one of the most, is able to remember the previous question that it has. So it has a memory. So that way you can keep an interactive and long conversation. Also, we will explain later, but each answer that gives ChatGPT is original and unique. It's not pre-generated or pre-stored in any database. So how it is possible to achieve all of these goals? Did this technology just appear from one day to another? So the answer is no. This technology is called a technological convergence, which means that during many years or decades, there is a lot of fields that the technology in different fields have been evolved and created new developments, and they are being converging to merging to a common point. For instance, this graph summarizes the creation of the example of the technological convergence in multimedia devices, where you have different sectors and the technology world growing and increasing until they converge into the tablets and the smartphone that we have nowadays. So the same has happened with ChatGPT. It's not an invention that the OpenAI has created from the scratch. So it has been a very the aggregation of effort from thousands of people along many years. Basically, ChatGPT internally is based in GPT-3 or GPT-4, which is Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So GPT is known as a large language model. A large language model is just a natural language model from machine learning, which is made of neural networks with millions of parameters, and which is able to process text. And depending of the task who has been trained is able to do one thing or another. For instance, do predictions or classifications or many other tasks. But basically, it's made to be able to process a language, natural language. This graph, you have the evolution of the size of the large language model that appears in 2017 with the introduction of the transformer, until the last one, which is outdated, is here. You can see my pointer here. Yes, here can be GPT-4, which is the last release that just a few months ago. So basically, this large language model, the base of this language model are called the transformer architectures. Transformers are just a kind of neural network. So just for the ones who don't know, I will explain very easily and very quick, which are neural networks. Okay, so the concept of an artificial neuron comes from the nature, from biology. We have the biological network inside our brains, which are cells that are built or created to solve tasks. So in these biological neurons, by repetition, they learn how to solve different tasks. For instance, that's how we learn how to speak, how to read, how to ride a bike, how to swim. So by repetition, on trial and error, we learn how to do tasks. So the same methodology was translated to an algorithm, an artificial algorithm, which are the artificial neurons. They learn by a process of repetitions. You give an input, the income data that you want to process, and you measure the output. And by a loop of repetition on trial, this input millions of times until you get the output that you are looking for. For instance, you want for an artificial neuron to learn how to sum two numbers. You provide millions of pairs of numbers, and you give also the output, which is the sum of the two numbers that you want. And the artificial neural network, by comparing the input and the output millions of times by a process which is called supervised learning, is able to learn how to solve these tasks. So this is the most easy one. So then you can connect and aggregate different neurons to build a neural network. When you concatenate the output of one neuron with the input of the next one, that way you can create models who are able to solve more complex tasks. So in the last decade, at first, the first neural network was built to just general purpose to solve general tasks, but then they were specialized. The design, the architecture of the neural network to solve a specific task. For instance, convolutional neural network were applied to solve problems regarding spatial data like computer visions. Or the recurrent neural network we were built to deal with text processing. So the transformers are just a new kind of architecture of neural network which improve an evolution of the recurrent neural network to deal with data, to be able to process data. And currently, they released this kind of architecture in 2017 in one research paper, now I think has close to 70,000 citations, just made a revolution in this field. And currently, it's the state of the art in natural language processing. So thanks to the transformer is why these models, which are able to process a natural language, they exponentially explode in performance. So in our case, the model that is inside or below ChatGPT is GPT. And GPT focuses in the prediction, in the task of prediction, which is just basically is aimed to generate new text. It reads the input text, our question, for instance, and is able to predict which is the answer to this question. For instance, we can give the question, okay, who is the best professor? And for sure, GPT is going to answer, and it's me. I am the best professor. So this prediction model, which means, again, for a given text input, is going to predict which is the following word or sentence that comes after this text, or the answer. Okay, as you can think, for instance, an ancestor of this technology are the autocomplete that we have in our phones, in the keyboards, where you are writing a sentence and give you a suggestion of the following word. So this is the same, but potentiated with 1 million times. Okay, so one of the most surprising features, as I have said at the beginning, is that the answer, the text that gives, that predicts and generates GPT or ChatGPT seems really, really realistic, like human written. So most of the people that use it for the first time, they think it's just a copy and paste from text that was generated by human in the past. So also, all of the outputs that give ChatGPT are completely unique and authentic. They are not copying from any database. In fact, ChatGPT is not connected to the internet. All of the information that is able to generate has internally stored previously. Okay, and also it generates from scratch the answer each time that you ask something. And even more, I will detail later, but just for you to know, ChatGPT works with a probabilistic model, so it reads your question, and with a probabilistic model gives each time a different answer. So even if it is new, it doesn't repeat never, or most of the time. Okay, so one of the most challenges that we have with ChatGPT is that we need to deal, or ChatGPT needs to deal with natural language, which for machine is something a really, really hard task. For instance, most of the machines, or 99% of the machines, require very specific instructions to work properly to solve a task. For instance, imagine the task of adding two numbers. If, for instance, we say, okay, we are going to take a calculator, which is a machine specially designed to this kind of operations. If we want to do this operation, we need to give to the machine the specific instructions to press the specific buttons in a specific order to give the correct answer. If we just press random numbers and buttons, we are not going to get the correct answer. But ChatGPT, on the contrary, needs to deal with natural language. The instructions, when we speak in natural language, are not so precise, can be very subjective, can be very imprecise. So ChatGPT needs to be able to abstract and understand what we are saying. Here you have an example. I am asking to do the sum of two numbers, but in a way that it's not just, okay, add me 2 and 3. And even though I give a subjective or long sentence, is able to understand and give you the correct answer. So how it is possible for GPT to understand and to process this natural language so good? So it is for a series of process. For starting, ChatGPT, when he receives the input data, the questions, the first thing that ChatGPT does is a process which is called tokenization. Tokenization is just separating, cutting, splitting in words in the most single units each word of the sentence, and to process individually these words. Okay, so after that, one of the other things that we need to take into account is that when we talk about processing words in natural language processing, a computer cannot understand words. A computer only can understand numbers. So another step of the process is called the embedding process, which is to translate these words that I am processing into numbers. And this number, which is actually a vector of numbers, is what the program is able to understand. So these vectors of number captures the semantic and the syntactic information of the word. For instance, here in the right graphic, you can see an example of this word embedded translation of different words. Each component of the vector represents one concept. For instance, if you want to store the meaning of the word cat, I'm going to give a score from 0 to 1 of how close is this word to this concept. How close is to be a living being, a feline, an human, gender, royalty, verb, plural, etc., etc. Has many concepts we want to store. And then we want to project these vectors in a dimensional space, multidimensional space. So as we have stored and described the meaning of the word in these vectors, we can see and measure how close are two words in meaning by measuring how close are in this multidimensional space two vectors. For instance, man and woman represent similar concepts, so in the space they are going to be very close, or cat and kitten, cat and dog. But for instance, houses and cat are going to be very separated because they represent very different concepts. Just to give you an example of the dimension, ChatGPT uses vectors of 300 components to represent the meaning of the words. And the new version of GPT-4, I think, increases up to 1,000 components. Okay, so we separate and we process, we convert this word into vectors of meaning. And you may can ask, okay, but maybe in a sentence, not all of the words are worthy to be stored, not to be translated, because they have no meaning. For instance, the articles, the prepositions, some verbs, they don't have a good, strong meaning to represent the meaning of all of the sentence. So there is another two pre-process steps before this word embedding process. The first one is just filter and keeping all of the most important one, which is in natural language processing is called removing the stop words in our corpus, in our sentence. For instance, if we get the example of the cat is sleeping on the bed, we remove the articles and the verbs, and we only store cat sleep in bed, which are the only three words that represent all of the meaning, capture most of the meaning of the sentence. Additionally to this filtering, another step is called lemmatization. This process simplifies even more the sentence by converting each word to its root. For instance, converting the verbs to infinitive, words to singular, etc. In our case, it will be converting our sentence to cat, sleep, bed. And these three words are the ones that we are going to convert to vectors to store as a meaning. So this is how was done actually the process of training ChatGPT or the GPT model. GPT was given millions and millions and millions of texts from internet. The entire Wikipedia, many millions of texts collected from Google. In fact, OpenAI has not disclosed the content of its database, of course. But they say that it's really huge. Other previous models previous to GPT, they use the entire Wikipedia, the entire collection of Google Books. Is up to the size is up to billions of texts. So it's a really huge cloud or corpus of text. So GPT, to this process of tokenization, lemmatization, work embedding, and storing in a clustering in a cloud, these vectors. So GPT cluster, create a cluster, how you can see here an example of, okay, I have books and I want to cluster the meaning of this book. I clustered by the genre of the books. And here you can see how the books are distributed in a multidimensional space according to the meaning of the content of the books. So GPT did the same, but multiplied by 1 million with all of the text of internet. So basically create a massive dictionary of words, but not only words, but also complete sentence to store the full meaning of one sentence. So imagine that, for instance, we work with the example of analyzing all of the information regarding the concept of cat. So GPT is going to create a cluster in one part of this huge dimensional space with all of the words and sentences that are related with the concept of cat, and they're going to store in a part. So then how it works? When we provide an input, a text as an input to process, he's going to process this input text, tokenize, lemmatization, and word embedding, and these vectors, this concept translated, they are going to compare with his entire dictionary to look for other vectors of embeddings, word embeddings, or the word and sentence that has the most similarity with him, and are the ones that are going to take as a possible answer. For instance, if you have asked a question about, I don't know, the environment of where cats live, it's going to look for word and sentence related to where the cat lives, how the cat lives, and is the part of the possible answers that are going to give. Then, as you can have many different answers as possible best answer, using a probabilistic model is going to just choose one of them, and it's the one that is going to provide you as an answer. So as you can see here, ChatGPT does not understand really as a human as we do the text. It's just relating similar concepts. So, but the training was so good that this relation of similar concept can be confused as, okay, it's really understanding, and it's understanding what I am asking and giving me the correct answer. But no, in fact, it's just relating in his massive database of dictionary, which are the concepts that he has learned, which are the most similar to your question. In fact, if you ask the same thing several times, each time it can give you a different answer, which is also very close due to this probabilistic approach. Okay, so then, as we have explained, the information is stored in a vectors of number, which has the most simple version of the information, the infinite of the verbs with no prepositions, no article. So then when we see the answer, ChatGPT, what does is the reverse process. From this word embedding, he translates into words, he apply our grammatical and syntactic rule to reconstruct the full sentence from the original version. So this is what generates that maybe or many times ChatGPT can give or can make errors regarding to grammatical, or can do grammatical errors or not be completely accurate in the sentence, because it's not creating a full sentence from scratch. You know, this process of reconstruction of the sentence. In fact, as I can think, this is how we work. Imagine that you are talking with a friend and a friend tells you a story or something that happened to him. You are not memorizing each word of the storyline of your friend. You just memorize the main ideas that he has told you. And then if you want to tell this story to another friend, you're not going to replicate exactly 100% all of the words. You're going to reconstruct from the abstract ideas that you have stored to reconstruct the storylines and with your own words, and you can change them a bit. So in fact, this is, for me, this is a very, very, very smart solution. So just as a summary to see how ChatGPT works, it receives an input of a text, applies a different processing steps, tokenize the information, lemmatize to summarize, and convert to a work embedding. Then this work embedding is compared with his entire cloud of corpus internal to look for other word embedding which are the more similar with him. And with a probabilistic model is to choose which one is the most probable to be the most similar to him. Then once he has chosen the solution, it just do the reverse process to reconstruct the full sentence. And this is the one that we receive as an answer. Okay, so this is basically, in a very, very broad view, of course, how this model works. So actually, what I have explained is not how ChatGPT works. It's how the original GPT model works. Before the release of ChatGPT, OpenAI did some adjustment to the model to improve the accuracy of the answer and the performance of the answer. So to this training of creating this cloud of embeddings, we have seen OpenAI added 2 more steps, which consist in adding human supervisions to improve the quality of the answers. The first one, they hired a group of 200 people, and they worked many hours per day for 6 months, just answering questions. So they create a data set of questions and very, very good answers. They provided this data set with questions and very good answers written by humans to the GPT model. So the GPT model could retrain and learn how to improve the quality of the answers that he's going to give. And additionally to this, a second step was based on reinforcement learning, which was called reinforcement learning from human feedback. Again, the same group of people, they were working with answers given by ChatGPT. ChatGPT started to generate from one question 5 answers, and for these 5 answers, an human just rate and give a score to these 5 answers from 0 to 5, which is the best one or the worst answer. Then with this score, again, GPT had the information which answers were better. So it could retrain the model with this information to even more improve the quality of the content that was provided. And with 2 steps of fine-tuning the model and improving the quality of the model is how they release ChatGPT. Okay, so this was the first part of explaining how ChatGPT works. And then after the first week after the release of ChatGPT, and which everyone saw the amazing performance of this large language model, and there was a rise and increase of concerns in general population for, okay, this is really good. So is the AI going to steal my job? I am going to be replaced by ChatGPT in my job. So to analyze this question, OpenAI did a very, very intensive research about this topic, trying to analyze the impact of ChatGPT in jobs. So the topic was to analyze the level of exposures of jobs to ChatGPT. And they published this research paper, which is, I have here the reference, I think it's really, really, really interesting. It's 30 pages, 35 pages long, with a lot of analysis and detailed information. But just to summarize for you, this paper focuses on the concept of exposure, which is not replacing. Exposure means or talks about the number of, for a particular job, the number of tasks that can be automated or done by ChatGPT or other large language model like ChatGPT. So the main conclusions that they summarize are, of course, they analyze is only for the US. In the 80% of the job market that they analyzed, at least 10% of the tasks were exposed to this large language model. And up to 19% of the jobs may reach up to 50% of the tasks compromised for these technologies. So one of the first, for me, was very surprised because it wasn't expected for me at first. One of the first conclusions of this study was that, contrary to what common sense might dictate or we can talk in the street, is the most exposure the most level of exposure in job for this large language model are not the less qualified jobs, but the most qualified jobs with the higher incomes. So these are the jobs that are more compromised for this technology and not the less qualified jobs. And this can make sense if we take into account the following concepts. The most qualified jobs are the ones that can really take advantage of this technology, like coding, software development, research, or any kind of high qualified job regarding to knowledge, like university, academia, etc. And also these high qualified workers are the ones that have the access, the ability, and the skills to leverage this technology. Here you can see a summary for different fields and the level of exposure for this task. As you can see, for instance, in finance, in accountability for tax, writers, in journalism, any field related to humanities or academia, there is a fully level of exposure of the jobs for this of this technology. Which this level of exposure doesn't mean that this job can be completely automated or replace it, because you need still a human intervention, a human that orchestrates how this technology works. So as an expected and as expected, the least exposure jobs are the ones that are really far away of the scope of these technologies, like agriculture, farming, lumberjack, any outside of the technology of processing of text of language. So, but without being naive, everyone can agree that, of course, this technology will have a huge impact in the work, the marketplace, or in the number of jobs, because with the use of this technology, previously in a company, if you needed 50 people to do one job, with this technology, maybe the number of people to do the same job, it will be reduced to, I don't know, half, 10%. We will see. So of course there will be an impact, and still it's too early to make predictions about the new jobs that are going to create or are going to be generated with this technology, as has happened in the past with any disruptive technology that has appeared in our society, like with the Industrial Revolution, with the eruption of the computers or internet in the past. So the third topic of the presentation has to deal with futures implementations of ChatGPT. So everyone, until 2 months ago, we were working with GPT-3 or GPT-3 3.5, which was this improved version with human supervision. So just I think now it's 2 months ago, OpenAI released the new version, GPT-4, which improves in any metric the performance of GPT 3.5. Of course, they added this GPT-4 to his premium version of ChatGPT, which is ChatGPT Plus. So if you are using ChatGPT Plus, you are using this GPT-4 version of the model. So another interesting thing is how previously, if we can back now to one of the first slides of the presentation, where I introduced the different large language model. Previously, there was a lot of open disclosure of the performance, of the contents, of the characteristics of all of the models, the size, the number of parameters, the performance, the accuracy. They disclosed the research paper where they detail all of the characteristics of the model. However, after the eruption of ChatGPT, the competitors started to create and to develop and to release their own versions, like Google and like other big techs, or they are doing right now. So to avoid for the competitors to take advantage of their technology, with GPT-4 is the first time where they haven't disclosed the performance of the characteristics of the architecture of the model. So we don't know much. They only disclose in a technical report. They create a benchmark, a set of benchmarking to test to compare the performance of GPT-4 against GPT 3.5 in solving human tasks. For instance, in this graph, you can see the performance, the score of GPT, the original ChatGPT and GPT-4, the score that they got in solving, in passing university exam for different fields. So this is really, really amazing on my point of view. And you can see how GPT-4 improved hugely the score of the performance of GPT-3. So for me, this is quite an awesome performance. However, we are just with GPT-4 release, and they are announcing that in the following months everything is going to change again, because they are preparing really amazing improvements to GPT-4, which are to ChatGPT, which are going to completely change the paradigm of using this large language model. So there are expected 4 main improvements to add to ChatGPT or GPT-4 in the following months during this year. They are promised to be released before the end of the year. So the first one is related to the context of how ChatGPT is able to memorize and store the given information. Currently, ChatGPT has some memory, has the capacity to remember all of the conversation, but of course up to a limit. Currently, the limit for ChatGPT to remember the conversation is 3,000 words, which is quite well, but has some limitation depending on the task that you want to solve. So they explain that they are going to release a new version of GPT-4, which increased the size of the memory and is up to store up to 25,000 words, which is approximately 50 pages of documents. So it's able to deal at the same time with 50 pages of document and process at once. So this is quite amazing, as it's going to be able to create new or to solve new tasks that currently is not possible. So the second one, which is even more amazing, is converting ChatGPT in not only a natural language model, but a multimodal model. The multimodal model are the machine learning model that are able to deal at the same time with different kinds of data. For instance, as I explained at the beginning, the GPT model is able to process text. And there are another different kind of neural network that were created to deal with another kind of data, like images or video. So they are creating a version of GPT-4 which is able at the same time to process text, images, and videos, and understanding it. For instance, they disclose a demo where they ask or they give as an input to ChatGPT these questions: what will happen if the string were cut, and this image. And his developing version of ChatGPT with this new feature was able to understand that he has R balloon attached by strings, and the model answered that the balloons will fly away. So for me, this is quite awesome. And for instance, another thing that they explain with this new feature is you can draw drafts of concepts. Imagine you are going to draft of the schema of something, a model that you are developing, of the notes of a meeting that you did handwritten. You take a picture, you upload to ChatGPT, and he's able to transcribe the content of these notes and just deal with it. So the third feature has to deal with graphic user interface, GUI. So right now, ChatGPT, the way that we interact with ChatGPT is in a chatbot interface. We have a cell where we write something and we receive another cell with the answer. And we can continue this conversation as a chat box. So this has some limitation because you cannot solve any task with this kind of interactions. So an improvement to this is to create new ways of interactions with the model. For instance, as Microsoft has a big part of OpenAI and they have integrated GPT in his own architecture, they are developing the complete integration of ChatGPT into his suite in Microsoft Office, in Windows, in Bing, in his Edge Explorer. So they are creating, for instance, buttons with predefined capabilities to solve tasks. For instance, a button to translate a text, to summarize, to redact something, to explain and extend or create a text from given different ideas. So the possibilities we will see in the following months. And the last one, which is the most impressive of all of them, is the possibility of ChatGPT to interact with other tools of softwares to expand and leverage the capability of solving tasks. For instance, previously I explained the example of that we can use ChatGPT to solve a mathematical operation. We can ask ChatGPT, okay, please give me the solution to this mathematical operation, to this sum of two numbers. Actually, ChatGPT is not really performing the mathematical operation. He's just, as I explained before, understanding the concept of these two numbers and the concept of sum and looking in his cluster of word embedding, which is the most probable answer, which in most of the cases is the summatory of these two numbers. But it's very easy to get wrong answer from ChatGPT in this specific question. You can ask many times to perform different mathematical operations, and it's going to fail a lot. So one way to solve this is imagine that we ask the same question, but instead of for ChatGPT to solve this problem, understanding in a natural language processing way, you say, okay, I understand that I have been asked to solve a mathematical operation. Then I'm going to connect myself with the calculator of the computer. And I'm going to use the calculator to perform the exact operation. And that way I'm going to be able to give the exact solution. So this is a very simple case just to explain you the concept, but imagine the endless possibilities for this. You can connect ChatGPT with other applications, for instance, to be able to help you as a real chatbots and assistant. For instance, you can ask ChatGPT, okay, I want a recommendation for a restaurant for dinner for today in my city, and he connect with search engine TripAdvisor on an online search of restaurants, analyze the application and give you a specific recommendation, and maybe is able to manage for you a reservation, to reserve plane tickets, or I don't know, many different things. So this feature is going to be able to create or to become for ChatGPT a real AI assistant for us. And now, just in this week and in the past week, ChatGPT was released the official apps for iPhone. So we have in our phones this tool. So just when they release, imagine the possibilities for us to solve tasks when we have this feature in our smartphone, just with a few clicks of distance. And just for you to give you another example of this feature, the most amazing one that I have found on internet is the possibility of connect ChatGPT with other machine learning models to solve really amazing and complex and difficult tasks. I don't know if you know, but there is a huge archive or database for machine learning. The most famous one is called Hugging Face. It's like the Wikipedia for machine learning, where there is stored a huge dictionary of data sets of data and thousands of machine learning models, open source, for the community to download and use it. So Hugging Face is developing this feature of they call Hugging GPT, which is an integration of ChatGPT in his own web page, where you can interact with ChatGPT like we do in a chat box. And okay, you ask a task that you want to solve using machine learning, but you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to programming, or maybe you don't know the already existing models of machine learning that they already exist for solving this task. So you interact with ChatGPT, and he's able to understand what task do you want to solve. It look for the correct or the most optimal machine learning modeling in the Hugging Face database. They provide the input to this model and recover the output of the model and give you the output of the task. So for me, this is going to be the most disruptive technology that they are going to release in the following months, because the possibilities to create new developments or new knowledge are, I don't know, we will see. But of course, I have explained many different amazing performance, features, possibilities, characteristics, but with every disruptive technology comes always with issues and limitations. In the case of ChatGPT, one of the main issues is the trustworthiness of the answers. As I have commented different times in this presentation, it's very easy to get a wrong answer from ChatGPT, and you can confuse it. Imagine that you ask one question and give you a correct answer, and you can say no, but you are saying me something which is incorrect. Imagine, okay, give me the summatory of 2 and 3, and it said it's 5, you can say no, the correct summatory of 2 and 3 is 10. And ChatGPT answers you, okay, sorry, I have made a mistake because I am an AI, I'm not a human, so I make mistakes. Okay, and from that moment, ChatGPT integrates the knowledge that 2 and 3 is 10. So imagine if you are interacting, trying to solve something or to get the answer to something that you are unconsciously introducing, or you are biased and you are introducing wrong concepts. So it's very easy for you to confuse the model and to create a really wrong answer. So, but why is that? Because of what I explained before, that ChatGPT is still not able to fully understand you as human does. ChatGPT is built as a very huge cloud of relating concepts. So this relation of the concept only assures us that the answer that ChatGPT is going to give us is just something that is very close to the meaning of what we are talking. But maybe it's correct or maybe not. We don't know for sure. We cannot assure that. So in fact, another thing, as I explained before, the first training of ChatGPT was unsupervised by human. It was completely automated. They provide, okay, here, imagine you have here the entire Wikipedia. Just process the text and learn how to relate concepts. So if you're not supervising the text on internet, everybody know that on internet is everything, good things and bad things. So unfortunately, ChatGPT has learned a lot of bad concepts. So it's very easy to get on to receive homophobic and racist opinion. Not also wrong answer, but very bad and unwanted behavior from this machine. There was a joke online of when Microsoft released the integration of ChatGPT in his Bing Explorer. There's a lot of people that very easily they got these racist comments and answer from the Bing chat box because of this bad training. But so far, it is what it is, because we don't know still any other way to be able to reach this level of performance without complete human supervision. It's impossible. We need to have a compromise, because imagine that we're going to train this model but with a complete human supervision. It's impossible, because ChatGPT was trained with billions and billions of texts, and it's impossible for us to check and correct billions of texts. So it's something that they need to learn, and through repetition. For instance, with the release of GPT-4, they have had a lot of filters to limit this unwanted behavior. So at the end of the day, and OpenAI say a lot, it is completely responsibility of the user how to use this tool. And it's responsibility of the user to do not trust blindly of what ChatGPT is giving you as an answer. So as I said at the beginning, we cannot see ChatGPT as a technological and magical oracle which is going to give us the answer to everything. So with this limitation or comes many other issues. For instance, you may have asked why other big tech companies haven't released yet their own version of ChatGPT, like for instance, Google. Why they don't have done it? Microsoft is the only one who has taken this risk, but the rest are still waiting. Why? Precisely for this unpredictable behavior of the technology. Imagine Google based 90% of its income in the search engine. So for them, it's really important to have a good behavior of the content that he's showing in his search engine. So Google cannot afford to make these mistakes and to give this wrong or racist or homophobic or controversial answers. In fact, as if you are interested in the topic, you have followed the news. Actually, Google has his own ChatGPT, which was called Bard AI, and they presented a few months ago. And surprisingly, just for you to have an idea of the level of this, of the level of exposure of this model has for the companies, at first they just released a promotional video showing a concept of how you can interact with Bard. Like, okay, as with ChatGPT, you also have a chat box where you can ask things and you receive the question. And just with a few examples of this question and answering, the people that were seeing the promotional presentation, they check that the answer that Bard was given contain some mistakes. So say, okay, so this is like ChatGPT and is able to give you to make mistake and to give you wrong answer. So only for that, for this promotional video, in the moment of release, and the stocks of Google fall up to 8%, which is approximately $100 billion just for this promotional video. So they stop everything and say, okay, we're going to stop and we are going to continue developing with more calm our own language model. That's why Facebook or Apple are still working on the development and they haven't released their own version of this large language model. Microsoft is the only one who has done it, but because in the market that they have released that, which is in the search engine, in the Explorer, in Bing, they have nothing to lose because currently the Bing Explorer is the less popular of it. So they say, okay, we cannot do it worse, so we have nothing to lose. So we just have the opportunity to rise and to expand, but Google is in another position and also Apple. Okay, so also there is a lot of ethical dilemmas and a need of regulation that has appeared with the irruption of this technology. For instance, as you may have known, currently ChatGPT has been used massively in a school and university to solve the assignment. So there is a huge concern and issue of how do we control this, because students are using daily ChatGPT to solve for themselves the technology to do the assignment. So there are some trials to create anti-plagiarism tools to try to detect if a text was created for an AI or not. But as what's happened with ChatGPT, they don't work well and they give false positive. In fact, just a few weeks ago, there was a viral news online of a student from the US that was was fired from removed. She was banned from the university because it was detected for her assignment as they were done supposedly for ChatGPT. And she demonstrated that they were done by herself, but the anti-plagiarism tool that was implemented in the university failed a lot. So this is still not a good solution. Also, any kind of online exam or assignment are also compromised. So there's a huge concern in university as a school that need to adapt to this new era and see how to deal with it. So there are people and experts that are saying, okay, is maybe this the end of the task era, of the task-based learning? Do we need to change how do we measure the students in the university, in the school? Maybe, because with this technology, the actual ways, the current ways that we have are compromised, and we cannot ensure 100% if the students are being original or they are copying the things using these tools. Also, as I explained at the beginning, ChatGPT has been used massively for writing in academia research paper, not only as an assistant tool just to correct and to check the grammar or the syntaxes of the level of English, like a translator, but also just to write the entire paper. And it has been published. It's been published. So a lot of research papers have been published that the author, after that, of course, they said, okay, but this paper was done entirely by ChatGPT. Also, another thing that is more bad is that it's being used for fraud by replacing and impersonating people, simulating human conversation. There was also a viral news a few years ago from a mother that received the message by SMS for her child asking for help, like, okay, I need help, I have been kidnapped or something like that. I need for you to give money to this bank account because something like that. This typical phishing fraud. But as this was done by ChatGPT, the quality of the conversation was so good that this mother, she believed that was her daughter, not an artificial matching. And so this enormous and great difficulty of detecting whether a text or not is human or AI generated is opening many challenges and that we need to face. So that's why, for instance, there is a lot of need for regulation. And there is the case of Italy, who has banned ChatGPT in his account in the country. And I don't know, maybe some of you know better than me because it's more of your area of expertise, that other countries in Europe are also considering banning the use of ChatGPT entirely until all of this is regulated somehow, because there is a balance in the good things that we're getting with the use of technology and the potential bad things that are appearing. And currently, the balance is more on the side of the bad things or the potential dangers of bad behavior that can appear with the use of this technology. At least in the aspect of the political, economics, and human regulatory aspect. Okay, so I think, yeah, it's everything on my side. So thank you everyone for attending.